CBT Nuggets ITIL Update Series, Service Operation. Well, now we're going to move from the transition phase or the transition stage of our life cycle into service operation. And in this particular nugget, we're going to look at 5 key areas. We'll talk about the overview of service operation and its purpose, some key objectives of service operation. We'll look at the importance of finding operational balance, the functions of service operations, and service operations processes. Let's talk about some of the goals and objectives of service operation, and this is really the phase of the life cycle where value is actually in real world delivered to the customer. This is where we actually get to execute our planning and strategy that we've talked about in earlier nuggets in this update series. So we're moving from the transition phase, from service transition that we talked about in the previous nugget now, into actual solution operation, whether it be a hardware-based solution or a software-based solution or some type of service that we're offering to the internal customer or the customer of the service provider. At this particular service operation phase, we're going to make sure that we have service support and availability. We coordinate and we perform the processes and activities necessary to deliver and manage our services according to our service level agreements. Also in the operational phase, we have ongoing management and control of all the technology that we're using to deliver the services and support the services. This is where we recognize the actual value to business. And of course, from the reports and output of this recognition, it may drive us back to previous parts or previous phases of the life cycle to continuously improve on bringing value to businesses. Realize this phase of service operation can be adversely effective or negatively affected by poor execution or poor implementation of the previous phases of the life cycle. So if we don't invest adequate resources and time and efficiency to the strategy phase and the transition phase, it's going to rear its ugly head once we get into the service operation phase. So we're going to focus here on the management of IT services and with a goal of effective and efficient delivery and support of those services. It'll demand coordination. It'll demand execution of the activities and tasks. Also, one of the key roles here is to confront the conflict between maintaining the status quo and adapting to the changing technological environment and business environments and finding that delicate balance between different sets of conflicting priorities. I've already mentioned this goal or objective, enabling efficiency and effectiveness of delivery and support of IT services. It also involves providing a stable environment. With a stable environment, it's easier to implement changes, and you can also implement changes without having too much of a negative impact on existing end users. And one of the main goals of the service operation phase is getting to a point after you move from transition to deployment, after you move from staging into operations, is to get it as stable as possible in as short a period of time as possible. We're also going to offer guidance, IT guidance on different process steps for operations, different guidelines and best practices. We'll delineate our methods and tools. This can all be documented, of course, and we're going to approach this from 2 major control perspectives, either reactively or proactively. And we'll talk about this here more in a second as we look at, finding balance. And this is one of those areas. As we find that delicate balance between being proactive or reacting to things that happen, this is going to make us more proficient at managing the availability of services, controlling demand, optimizing capacity utilization, also better at scheduling operations and addressing issues or challenges as they come up. It's going to facilitate better decision making, and it can be a key contributor during this process of identifying new technology, new services, and new solutions. We might think that, during the strategy phase, for example, that's where we're going to come up with new solutions and new technologies. But actually that's not true. We're going to discover most of our new technologies and new solutions during operations. And it's the people that have the day-to-day operations that are more in touch with some of the changes that are coming, some of the technological breakthroughs and advancements and new things that we can implement. And so we really derive that data from operational phase, and then we can give that into the strategy phase as we go back through this iterative process of continual improvement. We really have to move beyond just the daily, repetitive implementing of steps and processes to get our job done. We've got that standard set of operating behavior or procedures, and we follow that on a daily basis. The challenges with that is that we have an ever-changing technological and business environment. We have to be able to adapt quickly to change, to competition, to the ebb and flow of economic factors. It means dealing with that conflict between, the status quo and keeping things as they are, the if it ain't broke, don't fix it mentality, with implementing changing business and technological advancements. And so we've got these kind of four main areas of operational balance here to be aware of. There's an internal IT view, and there's an external business view. And to be successful as an ITIL practitioner, you want to be able to kind of, balance both of these worlds. Because the internal IT view is going to be focused on the manner in which IT components and systems are managed to deliver the service. If all of your focus is on the IT internals, then you're in danger of not meeting your business needs. At the same time, if you're overly focused on the way the services are experienced by the users, the end users and customers, and just about the bottom line of the business, it makes it hard to actually deliver on the promises that the business people are making to the customer. There's a disconnect between the salespeople and the sales managers and the product managers and the liaisons to customers and the actual technological solution. So, this is a balancing act. We've got kind of a seesaw here, and we want to make sure that these components are balanced. They're not always going to be in balance, and these four different areas here may have different balance levels at different points in time in the life cycle. Stability versus responsiveness. You may have an awesome IT service. It may be designed perfectly, but if they're not available and they're not stable, then that's going to be a huge problem. And if you focus too much on stability, that means you're probably going to be ignoring changing business requirements. In other words, you're focused too much on the status quo and not enough on being responsive to new changes and to new solutions and to new technology. So that delicate balance between stability or the status quo and responsiveness to competitive changes, to the marketplace, responsiveness to economic changes and issues like that. Then, of course, the classic one, cost versus quality. And this, you find this everywhere, from a fast food restaurant all the way to some high-end enterprise security solution. You have to balance cost versus quality assurance to offer, customers the best solution you can. You have to find that delicate balance. And cost is going to be internal costs, but it's also going to be cost as far as the customers, from the customer's standpoint. So cost versus quality, another delicate operational balance. Then I mentioned this one, a reactive approach versus a proactive approach. If your organization is extremely reactive, you're not going to be able to fully support the business strategy, because you're spending a lot of your time and your money and your resources kind of behind the eight ball, so to speak. And a lot of organizations actually do this. They focus on reactive IT management, and that's the main way that they provide services. They see it as being more consistent and more stable, and they actually discourage proactive behavior from IT professionals. The problem with this is, in discouraging this, you're discouraging investment in proactive service management and solutions. You're also not going to be as nimble as your competitors in providing new technologies and new solutions, because the people that work for your organization are going to be less likely to recommend new technologies and new solutions, because everything's a reactive approach. Yes, it's more stable. Yes, it's more consistent as far as the services you offer, but your competitors can easily trump you or get ahead of you by being more proactive. And an extremely proactive organization or competitor will fix the services quickly. Now, if you're an extremely proactive organization, already some of the benefits we can see of that, of just being ahead of the game and moving quickly into new technologies and new operating systems and new software. The problem, though, the downside of being too proactive, is you tend to actually fix and repair services that aren't broken, okay, that don't have problems. You introduce services that you don't need yet, and that's going to actually be a huge thing where you're putting more emphasis here on quality and less on cost, and then the cost overruns are going to be immense. So you're going to have higher levels of cost, higher levels of change, more effort. And the end result will also be a less stable environment, a less stable infrastructure, and overall quality of service is going to lessen. And so you want to find that delicate balance between being reactive with your service solutions and proactive. Next, let's summarize the functions of service operations, and a lot of this will be kind of a review from the original ITIL series, but the motto here is know your role and then do your job. This is service operations. The first construct we're going to talk about, the first major function, of course, is the service desk. And the goal of service desk is to support the advertised IT services, ensuring the accessibility, availability, and efficiency of the IT organization, and conducting various supporting activities. Now, there's different types of service desks or service desk components. We've got the call center as a very common service desk kind of environment. We've also got the help desk, basically to manage and coordinate incidents, maybe medium first-time resolution for calls and requests. And then we have the service desk, which provides a wide variety of different services. Typical high first-time resolution rate for calls and requests. So different types of service desk deployments. And then we can have different structures. The call center or service desk can be local in scope, in the same physical location, maybe the same time zone as the user groups it supports. Maybe we'll have a service desk for the UK, a service desk for the US, maybe in Dallas, and a service desk in Singapore for this global company that can handle all three time zones. You may also have a central service desk or a central call center structure where it's centralized, where you have multiple user groups being managed centrally from different physical locations. You may also do what's called a virtual help desk or virtual service desk, and this is one that I worked with quite a bit with my contract with IBM and State Farm. As I went in and did troubleshooting at different State Farm branch offices, I would deal with the virtual service desk and escalation of trouble tickets to different levels of support. And so it was done virtually with remote desktop protocol, as technicians could take control of the servers and the routers and other devices, other appliances at the remote offices. And then there's one that's called Follow the Sun, and Follow the Sun would basically be the global version of the one I just mentioned here. If I had a global business working in three major divisions of time zones, like I said, I could have a UK local, I could have a Singapore local, and a US local, and then this is going to follow under the umbrella of a Follow the Sun 24/7 solution where you've got multiple service desks across different time zones to provide that 24/7 availability of the service desk. And I worked for a company called Knowledge Pool, which was a division of Fujitsu several years back, and we provided this exact type of service desk / help desk / mentoring for our customers. Obviously, the service desk personnel have to have really good communication skills and technical skills and business understanding. There'll be some key performance indicators or KPI to help you to create good reports and generate results. You know, things like the number of calls, call resolution time, customer satisfaction surveys, things like that. Also, we've got another function is what we call technical management. And when technical management does the planning, the implementation, and the maintenance of a stable IT infrastructure or a stable technical infrastructure. It needs to be well designed, highly resilient, cost effective. You need to have personnel that have excellent IT skills, networking skills, security skills, productivity application skills, database, project management, all those type of people. And under technical management, you'll have a lot of different components. You'll have, maybe mainframes, you'll have servers, maybe server farms, blade servers, the networking aspect of technical management. There's also storage, maybe storage area networking or network attached storage. You'll have database services. You'll have directory services, maybe something that's using LDAP or maybe Active Directory from Windows. You'll have the desktop department of technical management. There's a software, middleware, and of course your web-based, which could be an intranet or maybe we're going to use SharePoint. Okay, we talked about that. So all these different areas of technical management. And that'll be made up of a wide variety of different people with different roles. You'll have specialists, you'll have architects, you'll have designers, and then of course, and they're at the kind of the core, the bottom of the pyramid, and then you work up with your maintenance specialists, your support staff, IT implementation, your administrators, your operators, your engineers, things like that. Then we have IT operations management, and this is the daily operational activities. And again, this may overlap quite a bit with technical management. Okay, but you can also divide it up as the overview, the daily operational activities of managing the IT infrastructure, the operators. And again, this is going to be set against weekly or quarterly performance standards that are defined during the design phase in service design. And this is a lot of the same types of logistical activities that we see in technical management, but you're maintaining the status quo. You're achieving that stability. You're going to be doing auditing and optimization and reporting and monitoring. You want to quickly deploy your operational skills to diagnose and resolve IT operations failures, address security breaches, incidents, failures in networking appliances or security appliances. It'll involve IT operations control, facility management, two big areas. Then we've got the application management, and this is basically the design and implementation and maintenance of stable applications. And that's to support the business processes. Yes, we'll have applications like maybe Cisco Works that's going to support our IT staff, but we're really talking here more about delivering services to our customers. So these would be maintaining database applications. It'll involve financial management applications, business applications, human resource applications, productivity applications like Microsoft Office, for example. So the ongoing functions of service operations can be divided up into these four main categories: the service desk, technical management, IT operations management, and application management. Next, let's look at the service operations processes, and all 5 of these different management tasks falls under either the umbrella of the service desk or technical support groups. Now, some of these different tasks or management components are going to fall more under service desk than others. So, for example, incident management and request fulfillment and access management is going to be handled mostly under the domain of service desk, whereas the technical support groups are going to deal with event management and problem management. With event management, which is again mostly handled by the technical support groups, you're going to provide the ability to locate and discover events, to process those events in the sense of, kind of understanding them for what they are, and then figure out the right control action. There can be, regular operation events. There can be events that are exceptions. For example, a backup of a hard drive failed, false positives on an intrusion prevention service, things like that. Then there's events that signify unusual operation but not exceptional operation. So there's different types of events under event management. And there's going to be a bunch of events happening every day on a daily basis, depending upon the size of your organization. The impact of these events will really depend upon how well your life cycle has been put together. Your event management strategy, or this process of service operation, will be developed over a long period of time. Be a lot of trial and error, a lot of going back to the drawing board. Okay, initially the focus of event management is to provide the fundamental foundations for service operation that gives input to incident management and problem management. So remember, the event isn't necessarily an incident or a problem. Okay, remember, an event can be a regular operation, a scheduled backup that was performed perfectly, or the deployment of some service pack for your end user operating system. Those are events. An incident is a deviation from normal service operation. So when events go bad, that's when an incident can occur. And we want to restore these as quickly as possible and minimize the adverse impact on business operations. That's why I said that incident management falls mostly under the purview of service desk, where event management is more IT operations. So an incident is an unplanned interruption of an IT service. It can also be something that results in the reduction of quality of an IT service, or it could be the failure of a configuration item. Part of the things we do in incident management, and by the way, this is covered in the original ITIL series, but some of the things we do in incident management would be incident identification, assigning some ID to it, would be logging with syslog or maybe the SDEE protocol, classification, support, prioritization of the incident, doing investigation and diagnosing the problem, resolving it, recovery. Disaster recovery falls under incident management, and of course, once you've gone through all of the processes, to close the incident, or incident closure. And like I said, this is going to involve the service desk, different layers of support groups or service desk, escalating these problems to different levels or different layers. You'll also have an incident manager that may be either defined in their job role as incident manager or as part of their role in some other capacity in the organization. And of course, incident management will also have its own key performance indicators like all other areas of ITIL, the total number of incidents, the percentage that are handled in the correct amount of time, the average cost per incident, the percentage that have been closed by the service desk or the help desk or the call center. How many of these were resolved locally? How many were resolved remotely? So you'll need key performance indicators within incident management to help you constantly improve this process and developing reports, summaries, ongoing process improvement. Problem management differs from incident management in the sense that this particular component is responsible for managing and controlling the life cycle of all of the problems, not just dealing with the granularities of individual incidents and configuration items, but the overall problem prevention and awareness programs to prevent incidents from happening, eliminating recurring incidents. In other words, learning from the incident and managing the problem so it doesn't happen again, minimizing the impacts of incidents that just simply can't be prevented. And we have two major processes. We have reactive problem management and proactive problem management. And a great example of problem management from a security standpoint in this reactive proactive is, for example, implementing intrusion detection systems and or intrusion prevention systems. IDS is going to be operating in promiscuous mode, where you're taking information and you're copying it from a switch port to an IDS sensor, and you're analyzing that and reporting on that. You're reacting to it. So you're going to have attacks on your system. The IDS system is going to alert you to those attacks, and then you can take action using incident management techniques, but it's reactive. Okay, IPS is proactive. You're actually putting a device in the line of traffic, right there in the line of traffic throughput, so it can proactively block and stop malicious traffic. So IDS versus IPS is a great example of this reactive problem management versus proactive problem management. And of course, constant improvement and upgrading and updating and fine-tuning your IDS and IPS is part of problem management, because by fine-tuning your intrusion prevention system and using your anomaly detection services and improving those knowledge bases, then you're basically achieving the goals of problem management, which is to reduce the impact of incidents and reduce the number of incidents and drive effectiveness and efficiency and improve the service desk solution. Request fulfillment's goal is to fulfill requests from the end user community. And so I'm going to put end user here. And these can be actually a response to testing or pilot testing or power users that you are using during the design and planning phase, or it can be during normal operations. We're talking here primarily about request fulfillment from the help desk or service desk or call center during normal service operations. So you're providing a method or a communication channel for users to request and receive standard services. Change management, for example, the process of changing their password. You want to also train and inform users and customers about service availability and the procedure for them to get those services. You're assisting with overall daily general information, including complaints and or comments. And so, some of the things that fall into request fulfillment goes back to, giving and providing that menu of services to the internal customer or the customer of the service provider. It can involve things like financial approval, especially if it's an internal scenario. So you have the menu of services, there's the cost and financial aspect of it, there may be some approval process that has to go through, approval or signing off of some supervisor or some IT operator, and then the actual fulfillment of the request, and then of course you close it out, closure. So this is a process. Your menu of services, the financial aspect, the cost, who's going to pay for it, and it's a whole different strategy when it's an internal help desk, service desk solution. It can involve, a whole separate billing process and a whole separate expense report system than it is with, let's say, a service provider and a retail customer. Be that as it may, there's still a financial aspect to it and an approval process before you actually fulfill and close out that request. Finally, we have access management, and the main goal of access management is to offer the functionality, the capacity for granting or authorizing users the right to use a service or get access to data or run an application, while preventing access to non-authorized users. So access management really falls into security, and it really comes into play with providing that confidentiality, integrity, and availability that we talked about earlier. This is your access controls, your technical controls, your administrative controls, your logical controls, your physical controls, all of the things that dictate not just physical access or logical access, but also authorizing authenticated users as to what they can do. Often you're going to combine this with some type of AAA service, authentication, authorization, and accounting, and maybe also combined with maybe a Radius server or a TACACS Plus server. And this may also tie into an 802.1x port-based authentication process. So in other words, some back-end database that has policies for users and groups that can authenticate them using maybe the Radius or TACACS Plus protocols and then authorize them based on some group policy. And again, these processes can tie into back-end servers like SQL servers. They can use, Active Directory and Kerberos for user access. They can leverage your Windows domain security model, those types of things. But access management really does tie into the actual security policy and access controls that are being implemented to authenticate and authorize users. And the accounting part of this is where we're going to go use something like a Radius server to determine when the end user started using the service, when did they stop using the service, and for how long. So accounting is really going to be a twofold purpose. And we may use both of the purposes, but accounting is going to be either for billing processes. Okay, so that really kind of comes back over here into the financial aspect. If it's an end user customer, we may use the accounting features of access management to determine how long they use something, because we're going to bill them for it on an hourly basis, a daily basis, a weekly basis. But we also use accounting, in other words, when did they start, stop, and how long, for auditing. We want to do security auditing, performance auditing, and part of the overall governance and IT management for auditing and reporting and monitoring on service operations. In this nugget of the ITIL update series, we looked at service operation, the key benefits that we deliver as a result of service operation, as we looked at, are effectiveness and efficiency in the delivery and support of IT services. We're trying to increase our return on investment and lower our total cost of ownership, and just provide a more productive and positive environment, a better environment for users of our IT services. And don't forget, when we laid out these objectives and overviews and purposes and looked at things like operational balance and functions and processes, that there's really two approaches. There's a long-term approach that we look at for service operation, and there's a short-term approach that we have. And these aspects may be different depending upon whether it's a short-term view or a long-term view. With the long term, there's going to be more of analysis and more decisions made about when improvement is necessary and how to best implement future scenarios, future tools, future technologies. And so when we look at our final ITIL update nugget here on continual improvement, we can see here part of this life cycle, this kind of this progression as we move from transition to operation and into continual improvement. We can see how this long-term view is going to be more focused on continual improvement. The short-term view is basically going to be more focused on, the day-to-day working practices and the day-to-day functions and technology and processes themselves. Focusing on smaller incremental improvements, maybe not overall design changes or huge fundamental changes to the infrastructure. Fine-tuning the intrusion prevention system, security awareness training, redeploying personnel, making short-term hiring decisions. Those types of things are short-term service operation techniques. So when we get into our next nugget here and we look at continual improvement, we're really going to be focused on kind of a long-term vision and scope and a long-term philosophy of deploying an ITIL lifecycle so that we're always constantly looking at improving the process on a continuous, perpetual basis. I hope this CBT nugget was informative for you. I want to thank you for viewing. We'll see you in the next and final update nugget on continual service improvement.